Hey y'all, Bob with Million Mile Garage. I'm going to finally get around to sorting out this wiring harness that almost burned the car down to the ground several weeks ago. I've had so many other projects come up between now and then, and tell you the truth, I'm not real excited about diving into this. Just a quick recap, I had the choke wire, which I think hooks up, where does that hook up? Right there. I got this off as well. Yeah, there it is. There's the remnants of it right there. Had that, I guess the insulation on it had cracked, and I think it grounded out right there on that bolt. And I tell you what, and it turned into a glowing mess, and it ran, I guess it comes out here on the harness, and then it ran all the way down, and you see, it was wrapped up in the harness tape from the factory, and it melted all the way down. And then up over here, it made a mess of all this stuff as well. Oddly, it stopped running, and it was right before, it was at dusk, right before the sun was coming down. It was like the middle of the week, several weeks ago. And believe it or not, just separating some of these wires, I guess a couple of them were melted together somewhere, or maybe down in here. I'm not exactly sure where, but when I got this thing pulled away and wrapped around, the car would at least fire back up. So it must have been grounding out the, one of the, I guess maybe one of the ignition control wires or something. But all this stuff looks like it's okay-ish, but I can see it melted all the way up to here. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to pull this harness off of the engine and get it out to where I can work on it and unwrap it and see if I can find where the wires are melted together. It stopped charging as well. I don't think it burnt out the alternator, but I'm pretty sure these field wires aren't getting energized anymore. One of them probably got grounded out or something. Not sure. I think that's just oily. Yep. But I didn't really do a very good job on this when I engine swapped it many years ago. This started out as a slant 6 car. And this is a 360 transplant, and you can see here, I think these brown wires, the ones that I think one of them goes up to the, yeah, it goes up to the coil. I guess that's kind of okayish the way it is. I'm gonna say maybe I shortened some of the wires. I think some of those wires were kind of long for the slant 6 where they went down to the distributor, but yeah, I guess that's okayish. But I guess I'll figure it out when I get the harness out. So I guess I'll stop talking about it and get it done. Okay, so I almost got it out. I wanted to disconnect it on this spot right here, which didn't look too bad until I rolled it over. You can see the damage is pretty extensive. This terminal we're seeing right here, that's from the choke wire that melted. This was previous damage. I think that might have been the wire for the blower motor. That got bypassed a long time ago. But I kind of forgot how crappy this harness was. So I guess it's melted together down in there. I'm having trouble getting it out. I'm not sure if I'm going to want to salvage this harness or not. Boy, that looks awful sorry. I got the two harness halves separated. And just looking in here, that looks pretty sorry. Yeah. I think it was, surprisingly, this bottom terminal right here, I think is the one that got overheated. If I got the right color wire. Maybe not. I had it figured out before. Oh, there it is right there. You can see where that wire's melted right there. Okay, so it was coming in to that terminal right there. Yep. It didn't really melt that part of the plastic harness. And again, this part over here was damaged a long time ago. I think that's the blower motor one. You see where I just snipped the wire and bypassed it. But that's quite crappy. And just looking down the rest of the harness, you can see where that wire sprung out right there. And then it went along and did damage along the way. This part in here looks okay. I'll probably have to untape all this and see how bad it is. The wires, I don't think they don't look terrible. I don't see any cracked insulation, but they definitely feel very stiff. You know that feeling that old vinyl wires get when they're not, the covering's not really flexible anymore. I mean, gosh, they are going on 50 years old. And just looking over here, you know, I pulled the other half through over here so I can kind of get to work on it. And you can see where there's a piece of that wire left that still goes back in here somewhere. You see all this is kind of melted, you know, all in there. Actually rolling this thing over, you can see where the damage is. That actually looks pretty bad. I'm not sure I'm going to waste my time reworking this. I'm still going to peel it apart and see what I got to work with, but that looks, you know, just like looking down in here. See, there's our problem right there with probably our charging and or ignition, right? You see one of those green wires, one of those either ignition or field, right? Because I think one of the wires runs off of the ignition, I think, for the field, for the alternator. But that right there, I guess, probably where the worst damage is, right in there. That's quite nasty. Now that I got her unwrapped, I guess the mystery's getting solved here. So these two field wires for the alternator, I think one of them actually was more of a lightish blue and another one was green. I thought they were the same color, but you know, it's been so many years. I wiped it down with mineral spirits. Anyway, following these wires all the way up, you can see the charred one. There's remnants of it here. You can see where it snakes all the way through here. You see it's charred here as well, and then it rested up against one of the field wires as well. I didn't realize this. It's got two feeds coming out of one terminal, and you can see the greenish one there, because I guess actually they were both green. And you can see where it melted all over the one that had the, you know, was pigtailed with. So I guess, you know, because it was a wire that's only hot when the ignition was on. And I know you have to have one of the feeds going into the field is on when the ignition is on, and then the voltage regulator completes the circuit on the other green wire. But evidently, these two wires were only powered by one wire, you know, because it's got one terminal going in there, right there. I think that's the one that got overheated. That one right there. So coming back over here real quick. So the lone burned wire sticking out here that only had one terminal going in there and only had one wire attached to it. So that was feeding both wires. That was feeding the wire I was using for the electric choke, and was also feeding one of the fields for the alternator. So when that wire got burned in half, that's why it's not charging, because it's not one of the field wires is not functional. I didn't know that was wired like that. And just looking at, you know, I still got to unwrap this, and this goes all the way back up into this T here. I don't know how far back that wire goes. That was the power wire, which just broke off right there. But that's part of the mystery. And I got to tell you, pulling these apart, it's not near as bad as I thought. Everywhere this wire passed by, it didn't really melt into the other wires too bad. You can see it scorched on this one a little bit. I don't see exposed wire, but obviously I would be inclined to either put a little liquid vinyl on it. I think they sell that at the auto parts store. Or just cut it in half, solder it back together, and then shrink wrap it so that it's got a covering on it. Or just replace that section of wire. Obviously this main feed's got to be replaced. I guess not a huge deal. I guess I could actually just cut this connector out and solder all these back together. That wouldn't be a huge deal. The rest of this wire really, it's not as pliable as I'd like. But actually where the wiring harness tape was, it's a lot more flexible. Just where the wire was exposed. But still, that's not bad. It's not cracking. So, not sure what happened with that one wire. But I'm going to dig into this one as well. I may as well. I'll get in there and see how bad that is. It may not be as bad as it looks. And I may be able to do a little surgery on this and just bring it around. And yeah, this connector does look nasty. But if I cut all these wires out of it and solder them back together and just shrink wrap them, that'd probably be better than when it was new. Definitely wouldn't have any connection problems anymore. Yeah, we'll see. Okay, unraveling the mystery a little more. Alright, I got the tape pulled off, and you can see remnants of the wire here, and then where's the fall off maybe. Trying to find where the other end of the wires are. Maybe I'm able to pull it off. Yep, there it is right there. Getting these separated, I can see where this wire did some damage. It got into, you can see where the one of the field, looks like one of the field wires up here is melted as well. And it looks like it ended up getting melted into the pickup coil wires as well. See that? There's the pickup coil wire, and it's melted into the field wire. That may or may not pull apart, but I see exposed wire here. And that might explain why when I broke the wire loose and wrapped it around the harness, maybe I stopped completing the the short, and that's why the car started running again. And yeah, you can see there's, looks like maybe exposed wire there as well. So there definitely was some damage done here. You can see here. Not sure. I don't think that's. Yeah, that's where it got into something else too. Melted some insulation off of. Is that one wire or two? I can't tell. Looks like it got into two different wires, here and here, and then going up in here. And I'm almost thinking that this wire here must come up off of one of these connections down here, but I'm looking for burnt wires in there and I'm not seeing it. So I guess I'll just unwrap the harness a little more. I got to figure out where this wire ends up, because I don't see any melting here. So maybe that's as far as it got, and maybe a little farther down there's good wire, hopefully. And maybe I can actually see what color the wire was. So if I really didn't have a choice, yeah, I could fix this. I know it looks bad. But I could go in and splice in some new wire where it's needed. Not a huge deal. It's work. I'm gonna have to go price what these things cost. I know I was looking at them the other day. I had sticker shock, but definitely what I got ain't hacking it. So we'll see. Okay, peeling back more layers. It looks like it's a blue wire. That's what's left of it, and I guess it kind of sort of stopped melting. Probably peel it back a little bit more, we'll probably find it intact. So it looks like, looking down on the bottom here, I missed that before. So it's blue with a white stripe, and it looks like going into the one of the connectors here, one of the firewall connectors, it looks like the wire is not completely melted. So I've got some wire to work with here. So I guess if I had to, I could splice in a new wire down in there somewhere, bring it back up through here, and route it back through like it was. And main thing is I gotta just see what kind of damage control I gotta do here. A lot of this is just the charred harness tape. That looks like that's a factory connection. Looks like where they crimped it and or soldered it. Not quite exactly sure. Factory weld, that might be what they call that. I don't know. So basically it's got one going in, and then it's feeding 3. Looks like 1, 2, 3. Looks like just twisted around. No, it looks like 3 wires coming out of there. Yep. Let's see, 1, 2, and 3. Yep, it's got 3 coming out of it. That complicates that a little bit, but I think I can still get in there and get that fixed. Yeah, that was overheated pretty bad. Don't like it got into any of the other wires, which is good. But that is a mess. Yeah. Okay. All right, I've got the terminal removed out of that harness block right there, and there's the burnt wire that was going into the firewall, and then there's the piece of wire that was burned in half that went to the choke. So I'm going to cut that burned wire off and leave just enough to solder on a fresh piece of wire and shrink wrap, and then I'm also going to come in here and just snip it. I don't want to get into getting into this factory junction thing here, so I'm just going to snip a little bit. I'm going to leave a little wire, a little pigtail on there, and come in and I'll solder in a new piece of wire and put a new, I'll probably try to reuse that connector if I can, and open the prong back up and it should snap back in. It actually had overheated. I actually had to use a soldering iron to finish releasing it out of the block. It was stuck in there. So hopefully when I open those prongs back up, it will still stay in place. No big deal. I decided to get energetic, and I went ahead and I actually had a coil of blue 16 gauge wire, which I believe is the same gauge that was on it, and I just went in and just soldered in on the end there, saved a little bit of wire, factory wire, and then I'm just going to shrink sleeve it, and that should slide back into the factory snap connector, whatever you call these things, bulkhead connector. That should go right back in. I've already spread the little clippy thing out on it. I got the shunt here prepped. I'm going to just twist these wires together and solder them as well. Do a little shrink wrappy deal there. Something interesting, the worst part, I guess what took the brunt were the pickup wires for the distributor. They're down to bare metal in a few spots. It got damaged pretty good, but that also would be pretty salvageable because this was a slant 6 car. This piece right here I think is plenty long enough as it is, and I guess because it's a slant 6 car, it had a factory, I guess it had an extender on it. I'm trying to find what I did with it. Oh, where did oh, it's sitting right here. Oddly, this was also wrapped up and sitting on top of the rocker cover. I don't remember why I did this, but it's an extender, and maybe the slant 6 is using an extender. I don't know. I don't remember how it ended up on there, but I think I'm just going to splice one half of this harness in on here, and just get rid of all of the melted wires for the pickup coil connection. And really, I think there's just this one little mauve-y wire here. I call it mauve. I don't really know what color it is. Pink, mauve, something. It got melted in one spot, but it's up close towards the end of where I'm going to splice these harnesses in. I might just snip the end of that off, or maybe I'll just use a long piece of shrink wrap on that one, or just wrap it in Super 33 or something, or liquid what do they call it, liquid electrical tape, or but that's really the worst of it. Everything else actually doesn't look that bad. I mean, it's it's kind of scrungy looking, because it's got melted harness and there are some pieces of that melted wire stuck. This one right here, because I think that's part of the yeah, that's still part of the pickup coil wires. That's the stuff that really bear the worst brunt of it. So yeah, not too bad really. I'll get in here and I'll get this soldered up. I probably could get this fixed this afternoon if I was really energetic. Okay, making great progress. Also gave me an excuse to go out today on Labor Day and pick up a new soldering gun, which I greatly needed. Picked up some helping hands, which was super helpful. I've got this wiring harness just about squared away. In fact, I just went in here and spliced together the AC harness. So I'm still completing the bypass on the on that connector, I went ahead and shortened the coil wires, so they'll come just off of the firewall when I loop this around and hook up to the coil instead of being, you know, wadded up in a ball on top of the rocker cover like they were the last 25 years. And again, going in and grabbing the, you know, I'm going to take this pickup coil wire extender thing. I guess that was a factory 6-cylinder thing. I'm still not sure on that, but anyway, I'm going to go in and replace on that. You know, I'm going to cut way back here on the harness and splice that in as well. I may have to shorten it because obviously I only need one end of it. So yeah, I guess we'll see what we do there. And other than that, I think I pretty well got this licked. Just showing you over here, I just have, you know, had this lined up and I'm just snipping and checking lengths and then going in and soldering. So kind of making it into a V8 harness, V8-ish anyway. The goal is not to have a big wad of wire sitting on top of the valve cover. And then I'm going to have to wrap this up in some kind of tape. I bought some Scotch Super 33. Read mixed reviews on it. I'm tempted to just order, you know, I guess that special wire harness tape. I don't know where you get it. You know, I don't know if that's just the Resto books or whatever. Not really in a hurry to get it back together. I'm going to put all this, you know, get all the wiring sorted and then just see if the thing starts and charges and does everything. And then I'll worry about wrapping all the wires up. Anyway, looking good. Some of the other problems I'm running into, especially after I already went in and did a splice, and actually not a very good splice. I probably should have cut that, should have spliced that farther up into the harness, but everywhere that these wires were exposed to heat outside of the wrapped harness, the insulation is cracking, and it cracks very easily, as you can see. It just breaks right off. For some reason, the temp sender wire doesn't seem to be as bad, but on the end here you can see this has been flexed many times, and I'm just concerned this is going to break off. Matter of fact, it's breaking off now. Yep, that's the end of that. I know there's a cigarette lighter style harness connector like this on, I think, Advance Auto. Or what I can do is just go in, I'm probably just going to razor blade this and peel the rubber back, and I'm going to go in and braze in a new piece of wire here, or solder in. Yep, that's the end of that. So glad I figured that one out. I knew that was going to happen. So I got a little bit more work to do here, but as you can see, everything's kind of laying into place. I'm not going to have as much wire sitting on top of the rocker cover, and of course that'll all be wrapped in harness tape eventually. I think I'm going to go ahead and change on these wires because I actually do have plenty of blue wire from a previous job. And again, you know, I'm not really spending a lot of money to rebuild this harness, which is great. If you had to go buy all the individual wires and everything, it might have you thinking twice about just replacing the harness with a new one. I think I'm going to change on those connectors as well, as old as they are. So I do have some greenish wire that's pretty close to that color as well. And I bought some connectors last night. I think I'm just going to use the ones that you crimp and then heat shrink the tubing around it. This comes with the connector. That way you get a clean, tight, moisture-free connection, and they tend not to corrode. It's not going to look factory on that part. It's probably going to be a little better than factory because they're not going to corrode at the connections where you crimp them. So I'm hoping all of these clean, tight connections also will help with any or prevent any future ignition problems. There's my new spades for the to go in here. I had an adapter on here for years, which is crap, and you can see it broke off. So I'm going to change on that connector as well on this wire. I might just make a whole new little mini wiring harness just for the ground. And then I can just put one of these spades in that instead, so I don't have to fool around with that. So got a lot of little detail work to go on here, but it's pretty much shaping up. I'm feeling pretty good about this. With a little help from my new soldering gun, I heated the tip of this metal up hot enough so that I could get it to release the rubber that was molded around it. This part right here, I just came in through the front there and heated the metal up. Of course, you know, I did razor blade, you know, around the circumference to get it out. And it looks like this outer part of the connector was kind of more of a guide. But I think I'm going to very carefully open that up a little more, clean the existing wire off really good, And I'm going to stick another wire right in on top of that and solder it on. And I'll just open up this hole a little bit, and I'll have that slit on the new wire, and I'll just cap that back on and super glue it shut, or 5200 it. And I think I'll reuse this with a new piece of wire. So since I'm trying to do this on a budget, and I wanted everything to be the same factory coated colors, you know, for future troubleshooters, hopefully myself many years down the road, right? I couldn't find that nice yellow striped black wire to replace on the coil, and so I just stuck a small socket in there and used that as a guide. And I just took a Sharpie style yellow paint pen and held it on there and pulled it through, and did a pretty nice job striping it. It came out pretty good. And the good part is it was cheap. That's a pretty good looking solder joint. Works a whole lot better than my 30-year-old Hobbyco iron, which I think was a 65 or 70 watt. It was a monster. And I gotta say, having this Harbor Freight Chicago Electric, this thing works a whole lot better. I bought this gun, or this soldering iron, about 30 years ago for soldering clevises together on radio-controlled airplanes. And that's my, I think that was a Hobbyco. I think they called it an ugly stick. I call it the Red Baron airplane. And it's got a big old 1 horsepower engine hanging off of the end of it now. It used to have like a 1/2 horsepower engine. I haven't flown it in probably close to 20 years. I think I built it back in 1992 or 93. It's I guess it's getting long in the tooth. It'll probably never fly again, but it sure looks nice hanging there. So I still got a little piece of sheathing here that's kind of torched, but you know, all of this gray wire is good. And this is for the oil pressure sender. I'm just going to use a long sleeve. I also put an extender here. This is a piece of just a piece of black wire with shrink on it. But I'm going to take this and just run it down, and I'm going to cover up that whole nasty area like that and shrink it. And then I'm not going to have any problems with anything shorting out. Looking at what I was calling a mauve wire. I don't know if that was supposed to be like pink or what that is. I can't, I'm having a hard time on that one. That's my yeah, that's my temperature sender wire. And it doesn't look like it has any exposed metal. It's just kind of melty. And then getting back over here, I had already gone in and spliced in on this coil wire. And I think this is a heavier gauge. This is like 14 gauge, but there's a couple spots here. Where was it? That were starting to go away on me. It had a crack in it. Yep, there's one teeny tiny crack. Yeah, right there. You can see metal. But there was another spot on it that was having problems as well. So I'm going to go ahead and replace on this as well. I'll have to run out and get, you know, I was at the auto parts store last night, and it's like I wanted the same shade of brown, but then it occurred to me that there probably is no shade of this brown because it's faded. Because if you go back in to the wiring harness where it was covered up with tape, you can see that's a completely different brown than when you come back out here. And then it becomes a light brown. That's just simply just from, you know, probably ultraviolet degradation. Sometimes you even just get a bounce up off the driveway, right? Even if you have the hood down. But anyway, I'm going to go out and get some 14 gauge wire for my positive side on the coil, and I'll just have to lose this factory connector, unfortunately. But I'll have a new sealed style. Probably having clean, tight connections. I'm hoping this thing will work better than it ever has. I still got to come in and change out on my leads. I think I'm going to go ahead and change these leads out as well. Get cleaned up, have lunch, go out and do a little more shopping, and then I think I'll pretty well have it done. I know this video is dragging on, but this is my baby. I know I probably sound a little better now, but I probably sounded pretty depressed in the beginning. It's just you know, 50 years with the same car, and then you have something like this happen. It's, you know, it's really depressing. But she's coming around, so I'm feeling a lot better about this. I think I'll have this thing fixed up. It's not going to be exactly like factory, right? I'm going to leave enough wire, enough length of wire that if I do decide if I want to go back later, because I know I can buy the factory style connectors for the alternator, at least for the stuff that shows, right? At least the alternator ones. I'm not sure about the ones for the coil, but you can't really see those when the air cleaner's on. That kind of stuff doesn't really bother me. Just as long as they're good, clean, tight connections and the car's reliable and doesn't burst into flames, I'll be happy. Okay, I got the pickup lead soldered on, and you can see light brown to dark brown. That's the difference in being wrapped up in harness tape for 50 years, and then this one was exposed to UVs. Completely different browns, but probably started out the same color. And then of course I got my gray with the black stripe soldered to the gray with black stripe, so that way the orientation on this new lead will be the same. I was careful not to cross the wires. Not really sure it makes a difference because it's just reading a magnetic pulse, but just in case, I got the same color to same color. You can never go wrong with that. Then of course I got my sleeve, and then I'll shrink sleeve that. Same thing with this one. I did remember to do the one on the other side. Sucks when you forget to do that. Yep, and we'll shrink on those. And then I just got a little bit left to do, and I think we're pretty close. Okay, there's my 90-degree temperature sender connector thing with the rubber end cut off the end of it. And all I did was just come out and I soldered the wire directly on top of the connector, and then I've got these little crimpy things here to grab the vinyl end of the wire, you know, to keep from rocking the wire back and forth and breaking it off like it did before. And I'm just going to put a shrink sleeve on it. I think I'm going to call it done for now until I can find another one of these. And I cut a section of the mauve wire out of the harness up here, right there. There's where a little remnant of it is sticking up right there. I'm just going to put in a black lengthening wire, since that'll be taped up on the harness, and then I'll have the pinkish end coming out over here like it's supposed to on the temp sender. It only has to travel a short distance outside of the wrapped up harness once I'm done. So that way, when you're looking at this, you'll see a purpley, pinky, mauvey wire thing, and that'll be the same one sticking out over here. And you can see it down in there on the junction, one of the junction blocks as well. I'm trying to point to it right there. It goes down in there somewhere. So cool, almost done. I also got my tell you what, even with this big soldering iron, when you got these big 14 gauge wires, it's hard to get it hot enough to solder. These are stuck together to my satisfaction, but I like to have all of it covered in solder. I'm tempted to come back and just hit that one spot and solder it in, but that's good. That's not going to come apart. That's a good joint. And there's the new wire I picked up at the auto parts store, and there's the old wire. You can see they're about the same shade of brown, so that's nice. Sure. Okay, here they are. I left the wires a little longish on the ends, so when I loop this back around, I'll trim them off. So you can see all of my splices. There's my coil wire, brown and brown. There's my pickup leads for the distributor. Follow that down. You see where I spliced those in, right there. Gray on gray, brown on brown. That looks like a negative coil wire. There's the splice there, and then just rolling it over. I put the crappiest part of the yellow where I first started. That'll be wrapped up in the harness, and then just following it down. There it is, where it looks all nice and pretty. So I'm just going to tie wrap this stuff together so it bundles up nicely as if it was taped. And I'm going to route everything, and then I'm going to crimp on some connectors. I'm going to need some connectors for the 2 field wires. I'm going to have to put ends on those. So I've got blue and green. I'll need to put a new connector on my negative coil wire, as well as my new brown positive coil wire, 14 gauge. So there's my oil pressure sender. I just left a black pigtail on that, but I'll still be able to see the correct color of the wire. On the black one here, see there's that mauve wire again. There's my black extender. And I'm just going to run that down and around, you know, on top of the rocker cover. And then I'll grab my my mauve wire, whatever I did with it. And, oh, there it is over here. It's a good thing I have a lot of portable workbenches. And of course there's that thing again, so and that's going to go on the end of this black wire right here. And then I'll have the correct color poking out on that like it should be. And again, I just salvaged a little bit of wire from inside the harness that wasn't crispy. Any of the stuff that was wrapped up in harness tape and away from the engine is still pliable like new. So there we go. I'm probably still, you know, a couple hours away from really having it done, because I'm going to have to, you know, lay all this stuff out, you know, finish the ends. And then I'll start it and see if everything on it works, and then I'll have to take it apart again and wrap it up in tape. Still not sure if I want to do that Scotch 33 or not, but I'm kind of still thinking on that one. I'll probably not really finish this, probably until next weekend. Okay, before I tape it up, you know, not knowing exactly how these wires are going to lay as I tape them up, I am going to go ahead and just check the continuity of the wires real quick. I've got the green wire going into the voltage regulator, so that would be the one that would complete the circuit, right, for charge. And if I can just find my other lead, I'm going to come over here and just hit the end of this green wire. Oh, that's not. Try that again here. Get that right there. Let's try it again. There we go. Let's see if we get continuity. Okay, that's a good sign. So I know that as long as this voltage regulator is not damaged, I'll be getting a signal from that through that green wire to complete the circuit to make the field work, right? And then I've got the blue wire, which I still need to splice into it for the choke. But let me go in here, and I know if I come right in on the top of this connector right here, this factory junction block connector, whatever you call them, I'm just going to come over here and grab this blue wire here. Okay, so I know that's got current flowing through it like it should. And coming over here, this would be the same ignition feed blue wire, which you remember I got confused before at the beginning of the video. This wire actually looks like it's turquoise. If I go down a little farther, I can see it's actually blue going into the harness. See where some of the tape is pulled away? So it's supposed to be a darker blue wire. But anyway, if I go in here on the one that's got the jumper on it, if I go in and go right here, I should get a signal. There we go. Okay, so I know all of that's working. That's good. I still want to check on the pickup coil leads, which give the signal to this ignition control module to complete the circuit on the ground for the coil. And just looking here, there's the brown one right there. So if I go in, I think I got that right. Yep, brown. And then I got to find the brown lead on this one, which I believe is this one right here. Okay, that's good. And then I got to find what I think is the gray one. I think it's this one down here. I think I got that right. Let's see if the gray one's working. Okay, so I know my pickup coil leads are going to give a signal to the box, but I also want to make sure that my new coil wire, the ground, which is that one right here, I'm going to go in and test on that one. Let's just grab the end of the coil wire here. Okay, I know that's good. And then I also know I've got on one of these over here, there's brown. So there's my positive coil lead. So if I take that and I grab the end of this coil wire, okay, so all of that is working. So I feel pretty confident that if I wrap this thing up in harness tape and then terminate the ends, I think this thing's going to run and charge just like it's supposed to. Newsflash, hit like and subscribe. See you next time. You lazy couch potatoes.